and with me I've got our favourite Irishman, Dave. How are you, man?
How's it going, Firesiders?
Good. Oh, man, big topic tonight, one of your favourites, talking Conor McGregor. I know how much of a fan you are. So tonight, our first ever guest, we're going to get someone on who's just as much of a fan of the UFC and Conor McGregor as you. He's a little bit fairer and less biased, though, I think. So I'd like to welcome Josh Rodgers, Josh Smoke Rodgers, to Fireside as the first ever guest. How are you, man?
Guys, good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So, talking Conor McGregor tonight. Dave's been
the notorious.
Dave's been itching to have this discussion. So, first question I'll ask is, when did you start following him, Josh? When did you first hear about him? When did you first start following him?
Look, I'd never followed him when he was in Cage Rage, so obviously it was when he first came to the UFC. Yeah, it'd have to be his fight with Marcus Brimage. I watched it, seen it. There was a bit of hype around him, but at the same time, I was like, oh, yep, it's just a new star in the world, and we'll see what happens. But definitely got my attention.
So it wasn't his promo videos you'd seen any of those around that time, or? Nah,
there really wasn't any, like nothing big at that stage. There was a few fan-made ones for Cage Rage, but that being a European organisation, it's obviously not as big as the UFC or the likes of Bellator or something like that.
Yeah. And Dave, we can let you off the leash now. Tell us, you love Conor. When did you first know about him, or first find out about him?
Well, I actually heard from him through Joe Rogan. So he had won the featherweight and the lightweight belt out at Cage Warriors over in the UK, and it's the biggest promotion in Europe. So the likes of Michael Bisping, all those UK champs and all, they all came from there. They kind of cut their teeth there, and then they'll make it in the UFC. And usually they fizzle out. I think Bisping was like the best person to really come out of Cage Warriors. But he'd done the lightweight and the featherweight belt there, and he was getting some good highlight reel knockouts. But I hadn't heard of him at all until Joe Rogan had shared his Ivan Borinka in December 2012. The knockout he did to him. It's, when you look back at it now, it's the same pull counter that you see in quite a lot of his fights. But when I seen that, I was like, holy shit, like that level of boxing and that weird karate stance mixed in with it all, and the capoeira, and he was just a fun fighter. And obviously being him from Crumlin in Dublin, very close to where I grew up. So ultimately I was attached to him. I was like, oh, he's from Dublin, let's hear him talk. And you know, the hype behind him with Dana White, which got him into 2013, was because he was a bit of a yapper, and he's kind of known for kicking up a bit of dust and social media, bullying to his opponents and that psychological warfare, but really didn't get big in the UFC to a couple of fights in, I guess.
Well,
yeah,
I mean,
that's when
everyone knows him as being a showman. That's part of the parcel of the package, isn't it? So do you know where it was that he was training? Dublin quite well.
Yeah.
Know that area, or?
Well, Crumlin's just around I grew up in Clondalkin, so it's fucking, 15, 20 minutes at the most in a car. At the most, like you could walk there. But obviously, I know I didn't know Conor McGregor, but I knew lots of people like him. Like in Dublin these days, that typical Dublin kid at the back of the class, little smart ass. He would have been a little fella too. So
the same way we thought about you when you first came over, man, pretty much.
But I was just but I was
up the front.
Yeah. But now, ultimately, I latched on to him. I thought this is great. I've been into the UFC and MMA since actually wrestling got me into it through Ken Shamrock. And because you'd always hear he's the ultimate fighting champion, and then obviously went into that, and I would just rent DVDs if people remember what that is. and you'd rent DVDs and you'd go on Fuel and watch the best knockouts, and then ultimately Lesnar came in, and it all came in that way. But there was never any Irish fighter, and not a lot of Aussie fighters either, really, that were hitting that were becoming mainstream. So yeah, definitely latched onto him.
Yeah, sweet. So, boys, where do you want to start with this discussion tonight? Because I know you've both been chafing at the bit to sort of jump in with, your fandom.
Chafing at the bit.
Fanboy straight up.
Yeah.
So,
where are we going? I think we should start at the bus attack. I think that that's when he really became great to me. Now, look, I think at 2013 gets the he gets his shot against Marcus Brimage. He's got no tattoos. He's got a fucking mohawk. There's a lot of hype behind him, but Marcus Brimage was fucking no joke back. People forget Marcus Brimage was on a roll. He'd won the Ultimate Fighter. He was a lot more experienced than Conor, but he was Conor's first test. And man, if you look back at that, the bolo uppercuts Conor was throwing, and the weird and the blocking techniques that just weren't happening, he danced all over him. He destroyed Marcus Brimage. But
I think the biggest thing, sorry Dave, like
no, go.
When it comes to Conor, especially the Marcus Brimage fight, his style had not been seen before. Like the way he moved, like he's got that traditional karate stance, but yet his boxing was next level.
Yeah.
Like you could say. And yeah, especially seeing the way he was just throwing combinations at Marcus Brimage, who, as you said, and I fully agree, was a very well-rounded fighter. It was unheard of. And then, as you said, like he just kept rolling and rolling and rolling.
Yep.
He couldn't do nothing.
But to bolster Roddy there, to bolster what Smoke was saying, this style of fighting, it wasn't karate. It wasn't quite karate. It wasn't quite taekwondo. He was doing this weird capoeira movements, but his boxing mixed in with that was that Floyd Mayweather pull counter style that you maybe seen Anderson Silva showing a little bit of it, but it still wasn't the same. And let's be honest, a white fella moving this type of way was kind of intriguing as well, because there just wasn't anything like that. You'd have Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy, but he was just a point karate guy. Yeah. But he was a weird mix, and he rolled with that capoeira and put a little flair onto it that he admittedly dropped, but
is it the
he was very interesting style.
In front of the pubs in Dublin, mate, on a Friday night, is it? Or
no, that's how good it was.
Guinnesses out on the footpath.
Yeah. He was like Bruce Lee, you know what I mean? Now, after a couple of Bruce Lee movies, you might see a lot of Irish fellas walking around town drunk, pretending they're Bruce Lee, kicking the shit out of lampposts and stuff, and maybe a little bit each other. But he knew how to do it, and he was KOing people first round. Yeah, which in featherweight, that just wasn't what was happening. You know, in featherweight, there wasn't a lot of knockout artists at the time that were just blasting people in round one.
Yeah, exactly, like you said.
Did you have him picked back then, Dave, like on your own to sort of get to as far as he has done?
Well, all I wanted from a fan at that time was like, man, I hope he gets to be a contender, top 10. It'd be nice to see someone from Ireland get up there and have some good fights. It would have been nice to see him. Back then I was thinking, oh man, I wonder if he'll make top 10, top 5. Because everyone up until he won the belt was saying he was a hype train about to get derailed. So you had everyone picking against him in all of his fights up to Aldo, and even after that. So it was you wanted him to win, but again, that was the start of the no hugger thing. People have been calling Conor McGregor fans bandwagoners since the start, and the idea was that some wrestler was going to take him out, or someone like Aldo, or everyone he fought. Dustin, Holloway, he was tipped to lose every one of his fights, except for Seaver coming up to his 145 belt. Like that's the only pick me he had was Seaver. You know what I mean? That's the only one up till ever, up until maybe Cerrone, you could say, or an argument for Diaz won. Well, the narrative of the time would have been that it was a pick before, but obviously it didn't turn out that well. Well,
Come
yeah,
into-
we're
the
down
biggest thing-
Brimage.
Yeah, the biggest thing that got me too was he come into it at a time when 145-pound division was on fire. I had Jose, who was the king. He was just on a rampage. I can't remember off the top of my head how many he'd won straight in the UFC featherweight division, but he was
He's
the
the only
first-
ever champion.
Yeah,
He's the only ever
first
champion.
And yeah, you had killers. Like Max Holloway was only young, but still he was good. Poirier was good. I know Siva was in the
Brimage,
top.
Brandel.
I know
Brandel
Siva
was
was
an
in the
Ultimate
top 10,
Fighting
but
champion as well. Brandel's Ultimate Fighting champion as well. Conor smoked him in a round.
yep,
And then Mendes, that was the big one because
he
people
never
thought,
faced a
okay,
wrestler.
that's right. If people thought he was skipping the queue by going straight from Poirier and Seaver to Aldo, but Aldo got injured, and Conor had to fight a fucking. People at that time said Chad Mendes was the best fighter at featherweight to never hold the belt because his last fight with Aldo was fucking. It was bloody close.
It was close.
And he's a beast. Chad Mendes is it's easy to look back at him now when he's years past his prime. But back then, Chad fucking Mendes was scary. Any team alpha male guy in the top 10 was scary, but Chad Mendes was a particularly dangerous motherfucker. And the kryptonite.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
His hands and his wrestling, he was just able to close the distance so well. Explosive. And a bit off topic, but I'm actually looking forward to watching him in bare knuckle.
Yeah, man, have you seen him train now? He is
an animal.
Yeah, and because he's so compact, he's like fucking corned beef in there. He's like
He's like
his neck and his shoulder. He is. He's fucking. But his speed and power and his agility, he can explode. And like Smoke was saying, his ability to close that difference, that distance so quickly with so much power, and he's a little dart. I think he'll do well in there. Is he going bantamweight in there or featherweight? What's he doing?
I think it's 155, I think.
Okay.
So I'm not sure.
Division wise. Yeah.
I'm not sure on their division names. It could be like boxing, like
There's been some question of his chin, I guess, the last couple after the Edgar fight. Well, really since McGregor, people have questioned his chin, which is what happened, which is what they did with Aldo before he went back on his role.
But I don't really see McGregor as, how do I say it, like the kryptonite for ruining Chad's chin. Because he got him with some good shots and he finished him in the end, but it wasn't a knockout. He gassed Mendes hard from those perfect body shots that he was throwing nonstop.
Heaps, those kicks to the stomach, man, they're fucking. They're
he does it so well.
Yeah, it's a good idea as well when you're facing a wrestler with that lower center of gravity to put that out there. You keep your distance, but it's a quick kick. It's not like the calf kicks, which ultimately are the craze now, aren't they?
Oh, we'll get there.
Swooping around. Yeah, we'll get to the calf kicks. But no, those kicks were fantastic for him. And like you said, he didn't knock him out, but he technically knocked him out. So a TKO, he wasn't intelligently defending himself. And it was a second round knockout. So it was, again, that was his pick around second round knockout.
But come on, everyone can be a fanboy, but everyone's got to give Mendes props. 2 weeks notice, and he went out there and gave it his all.
Yeah. But then at the same time, a lot of tangibles in that fight. Conor's ACL is actually hanging on by a thread. They had to keep that under wraps for the whole fight and the whole camp, and they thought it's all right. We're fighting Aldo, but then as soon as it switches to Mendes, you're like, fuck. Your balance is off fighting a bloody wrestler, and it showed in the fight. He was Mendes was fucking fucking him, and he was taking him down pretty much at will until Conor's body shots added up and fatigue came into it. But what a fight! What a fight! And that was his first belt. Adversity as well. He had the cut. It was his first cut in the UFC, and he became the interim featherweight champion.
And he proved that he can be taken down.
Questions. That's right, and because everyone says as soon as he's down the ground, he'd be fucked. But he actually, Team Alpha Male as well, known for their fucking guillotines and their ground. And he got out. He was able to flip out and reposition himself to standing up from a fucking guillotine from Chad Mendes. And he landed
already
good
exhausted.
shots. Yeah, that's right. Well, he was landing shots from the bottom, McGregor as well. Mendes was landing a fucking some beautiful cuts. And like Smoke was saying earlier about closing that distance, it was a nice overhand right Chad Mendes landed on Conor on that one. It was one of the best shots that Conor had taken in his whole career up until that point. So what a fucking fantastic fight. And his interim title, his first belt in the UFC.
So I suppose the big fight that really brought him into the mainstream for people that hadn't really watched UFC or weren't into MMA was, I suppose, his Aldo fight, and the result of that. What was your reaction? Smoke, I think actually we were living together watching that one in the living room.
Yeah, we were.
Right. So I know exactly how you reacted, but
pretty sure I was screaming, jumping up and down on the lounge.
I'm pretty sure I had to almost repair the floorboards, man. But
mate, like I was like stoked. Like it was a bit of a that fight was a very grey area for me because I'd been a fan of Aldo for so long.
Yeah.
But at the same time, seeing Conor come up from basically nothing, he come out of nowhere to putting on the shows that he did and putting on the performances and just the hype behind him due to his nature outside of the octagon, just selling fights, being the bad person on TV, apparently, like so some people say. It was just unreal.
We'll get into that as well, won't we? The mindset of what he's doing.
The king of mind games.
Yeah.
I just put it down to him being but,
13 seconds. It's unheard of. Back
Yeah.
then, it was unheard of, especially against someone like Aldo, who's an absolute killer.
Yeah, Aldo's the best featherweight ever. I'd probably still call him that. If it's not Aldo, I would call Conor. No, I'm calling it Conor because he's got to beat over Aldo. He's got to beat over Holloway. Like a win, I should say. Like the only featherweight champion ever that Conor hasn't beaten is Volkanovski, which he wasn't in that division at the time.
Yeah.
So and up until Volkanovski had won, the belt had gone from Aldo to Conor, and then he relinquished the belt to go to 155. Yeah, and then Holloway took it. So again, you can't even call Holloway or Aldo after that point a lineal champion. Now that's out of our hands because Conor wouldn't fight Holloway again, but I think he gets to say it within reason. And I think if it's not Conor, I think you'd have to give it to Aldo because of his 10-year reign. And WEC is technically the UFC. From featherweight and below before that, so he had been champion for a decade.
Well, I agree to a certain point with that, but at the same time, I do believe if you want to be a true champion, you need to defend the belt. And that was the first.
But that's not the best featherweight champion.
No, not at all. But to be a true champion, you need to defend the belt.
Then it's Aldo.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Aldo, but I'd say Holloway's in a close second. Just for the way
he lost it twice.
Yeah, lost it once.
Oh well, no, he lost it twice.
No, we all know. We all know what the judges are like.
I gave it to Volkanovski, even the second.
I didn't give him the second one, but at the same time,
it was close. And if it wasn't close, it was fucking. It's a draw if he didn't win. I think I can't see him winning. But again, that's
a title fight. You know what it's like, Dave. You never leave it in the hands of the judges, and if it's too close, they're always going to give it to the champion.
That's right. So, look, I love Holloway. I love Aldo. I like Volkanovski as well. Again, he's not that style of champion I like to watch all the time. Like he's one of those.
If he's on your watch list, you don't go out of your way.
I'll watch his fights now because obviously he's champion, so it's featherweight brass on the line. But no, I can't put him in the if I can't put Volkanovski in the question for best ever, then and he's on paper beaten Holloway twice. You know what I mean? I've got to give it. I'd give it to Aldo, but then I'd also something has to be said about the fact that he beat two champions. And Holloway's never beaten two featherweight champions. Aldo's never beaten a featherweight champion. Conor's beaten two. And you could argue Volkanovski's beaten one. In in Holloway, and Holloway's beaten 1 in Aldo, but that's it. But Conor's beaten 2, and he did it. He did it, and he went straight up and beat the 155-pound champion for his belt too. First
we'll
ever
get to that.
champ. But there's a little bit in between there. We skipped by the Diaz sequel. I guess there's no trilogy yet. And we also glossed over truly Max Holloway. We touched on it there, the Max Holloway win and the Poirier win. The Poirier win was supposed to be his first true test, and he sparked him in, was it 90 seconds, 60 seconds or something?
Yeah, I think it was.
But that was Poirier won. So where are we now? We've 13-second knocked out
The king
Jose
of Rio.
Yeah.
Dave,
The build up the king of Rio.
You missed. What was your reaction to that? We weren't able to hang time, but what was like that?
I have a bad
moment.
So I was on my honeymoon in Vegas, and in Vegas, okay, where the fight was happening, but my wife had booked us till the day we left Vegas, and the day we left America was the date that the fight was on. So I was actually in the air as the fight was happening. Didn't watch it live.
Oh.
I was getting on the plane and I was watching the undercard, and it was so close. I was like, "Fuck!" So there was no fucking Wi-Fi on the fucking plane at that time. And when I landed, I looked on my phone and it said 13 seconds, and I was like, "What happened? What?" And I was, you ask M, who Firesiders, you might not know who M is, but she's my wife. I was jumping around the plane. I was talking about it. As soon as I got off, I was just on my phone watching replays. I was like, I can't believe it. He did it 13 seconds. Because you look up at the and there's great videos. It's called Bums Who Pick Against McGregor. And everyone picked against Conor for that Aldo fight. So I thought he'd beat Aldo. But I thought it would be after the Mendes fight, I was like, okay, he's going to have to try and take them leg kicks. Jose Aldo's fucking fast. And his leg kicks, if you look at what he did to Uriah Faber's leg looked like a fucking eggplant after, and he's never been the same again.
No.
Aldo's leg kicks were unbelievable. He'd never got a shot. And it wasn't a fluke knockout. That's another thing I thought, everyone's going to talk about it's a fluke, but it wasn't. When in slow-mo, you see exactly what he was trying to do and how he did it. And then they showed, which is perfect, the backstage, him practicing the exact same maneuver. And again, you can, side by side, when they show that, it's epic, fucking epic, how he was planning to do it. He planned Aldo's movements, how Aldo's kind of like a right-leaning fighter, and he just knocked him out going backwards, 13 seconds, a couple of super necessary ground after that. And a knee from John McCarthy, and the fight was over. Glorious. And look, if that's all Conor ever did, I would have been like, you're a legend in my book, mate. That's brilliant. And again, that's half of I should say a third of his goals as a mixed martial artist. He said, I want to replicate in the UFC what I did in Cage Warriors. I want the lightweight belt and I want the featherweight belt. And the third component was, I want to have intergenerational wealth. I want to fucking never. I think he said 30 million in the bank. So he's far exceeded that. So right now he's not got the 30 mil. He's not got the 155 belt, but he's got that featherweight belt. And he had to go through an interim champion for it, but he fucking got it, and he did it. And that's the fastest knockout in the history of the UFC for championship fight. Masvidal's got the fastest knockout over Askren with that fucking knee to the head.
Super necessary. Oh, I love Street Jesus.
Oh man, if he isn't talking bollocks, man. I love Masvidal. I love Masvidal from back in the Kimbo days, and he's another person who people rid off a couple of years ago as a journeyman who kind of had a second flash in the pan. But I'm sure one day we'll have a Masvidal episode when we get smoke on again.
Absolutely.
So
where are we now?
Well,
after Aldo, the RDA 155 belt. That's the next thing, isn't it?
Yep.
So he was Conor was Oh man,
Red panty
and he
night.
came out El Chapo. He came out in the El Chapo fucking shirt, the Versace shirt. Did the fake El Chapo handshake mimicking him because RDA is from South America. So Conor was fucking blasting him with that, and he was tipped to fight RDA for the 155-pound belt, and they get so close. And I think it was like a week or two out from the fight, RDA
pulls out
with an injured toe. Conor McGregor said that his gynecologist wouldn't let him fight. But anyway, and he said, who am I going to fight? He said, fuck it, I'll fight. There was a lot of people that put their hands up, and ultimately he picked Nate Diaz. People said that he was dodging Donald Cerrone at the time. I remember them saying, why didn't he pick Cerrone? Why is he scared of Cerrone? And now obviously that's hilarious to even think about. But although you could argue Cerrone back in fucking 2015 is a different Cerrone. That's 6 years ago. And Cerrone was I love Cerrone. But RDA out, Diaz in. What a fucking build up, Smoke. What a fucking build up with Diaz.
What a series though. It wasn't just the one fight, was it? It was. I mean,
they've had two.
The pair of them are showmen. And they can talk shit and both back it up too. So
Conor was getting called McDiaz and stuff like that, and he was getting, because a lot of people thought Conor was like a Diaz type fighter as well, because he got the hands like Nick, the way Nick would come in like that, and a bit to do with Nate. Nate was a bit more judo and slap heavy and a bit pie, but he was very like Nick, and even Nick had commented on how he liked the fighting style. And Conor was a huge Diaz fan because what the Diaz brothers do. And what Conor kind of stole, Conor steals a lot from a lot of people, but we'll get into that, whether it's Chael Sonnen or the Diaz brothers. And what the Diaz brothers do, why their draws, is that it's a fight. There's a lot of competition that happens in MMA, and there's rankings and all that kind of stuff. And you'll get two athletes, they'll get together, and they're sportsman athletes, and they'll get in there and they'll take part in the sport. And it's a game and there's points. But when you're fighting a Diaz brother, it's a fucking fight. They make it a fight. When you sign that contract, it's like, fuck it, we're on. It's my team versus your team. Don't run into us in the lobbies. Fucking, it's on. And they create an atmosphere, and they're martial artists, but also fucking they're fighters. They're cage fighters. And they have two of them clash, and a lot of people said, oh, he's not going to get in Nate's head, because teachers for years had tried to get things into Nate's head, and these guys are fucking, these guys, they're punch drunk, but they're sneaky, they're sharks. They'll accumulate little tiny punches on you, and they can take all the punches. All the punches. Conor underestimated. He thought Nate would be a punching bag, which he was. He knocked his face off in that first fight for the first round and into the second. And then Conor got gassed because he went up to fucking 165 pounds from 145, which is a huge. He should have demanded Nate went down to 155. I think that would have gotten it maybe would have helped him a little bit. But Conor got cocky. He went in there. He was whipping shots. He wasn't being good, conserving his energy, and he paid for it. And a wily fucking Nate Diaz connected him with a beautiful fucking 1-2. And in round 2, on the ground, he took Conor's back, choked him out. That's the end of Conor. Still featherweight champion at this time, because again he's fighting Nate at 165, and this was just a mulligan fight. Like, Conor fought Nate as like, okay, someone pulled out, bring Nate in for a bit of fun. We'll do it at 165 because Nate doesn't have time to really make 155. So he lost his chance at the 155-pound belt and had to get a win back from Nate. What was it like after that, Smoke, after that first loss? It was devastating, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely shattered, mate. Like you said, shattered. In my eyes back then, like, Conor he's going to be the heavyweight champ. Like, there was no one beating
all the belts.
And then, Diaz, who I've always been a sneaky fan of. But at the same time,
Diaz.
Yeah. But at the same time, I was like, nah, he's no match for Conor. Conor's going to sleep him. Yeah. And after that, I was like, oh my God, like, there is. You could hit him with a bat and he ain't going away. The only problem is he's just full of scar tissue on his face, so he's going to bleed and the rest's going to stop it, as we've seen in Masvidal.
Yeah, he looks fucked. But he's like, man, I'm fucking fine.
But people don't
Like, he is
people
a
don't
fucking
realise
crazy fucking cat.
people don't realise just how fit he is. He does endurance like
Triathlete, yeah.
triathlons.
Yeah. Them both
Um,
motherfuckers, they're the kind of dudes that swim to Alcatraz and back like 8
Yeah.
times.
and
Like,
fight a shark on the way.
they don't give a fuck. Starting the sharks be running away from the Diaz brothers. Yeah.
And a lot of things I think people took out of that too is how underestimated Diaz's ground game was.
Yeah. That Gracie
Like,
Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
Caesar Gracie.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah.
And then, so the rematch was
Rematch.
scheduled
It
to
was
be at
on.
the same weight, in the same city, same opponent. Had to be the same for Conor. Now, a lot of people, as coaches, Dana White were like, Conor, no, let's do this at 155.
Yeah.
Nate's, you don't want to give someone who's fucking quite a lot taller than you that much, because for Nate is a 155er majority of his career, but fuck, he looked fucked getting down there. And he's bigger than his brother, who's a welterweight middleweight.
Yeah.
So Nate's a big motherfucker, and he can take hits from big motherfuckers. So people were like, make him come down to 155, drain him, but Conor didn't do it. And ultimately, I thought, now this is just the fight before Alvarez. So Conor, in preparation now for Nate, he's fighting world champions in Europe for sparring partners for boxing. He's really practicing, honing in on that southpaw stance, getting crisp, eliminating wasteful stuff like those capoeira kicks, which I kind of still liked back in his arsenal a little bit, but he kind of proved with Alvarez that it was wasteful.
Yep.
But he went in that second fight and I think he's the first, that Alvarez and Nate too he became the first fighter to knock someone down in a fight 3 times in a row. So he knocked Nate down, I think, 5 times in that whole fight. Yeah.
I think it was, like going back to Alvarez McGregor. The only other person that's been knocked down 3 times in a title fight was Frankie Edgar against Gray Maynard.
For the title, yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
But going back to Nate, 5 times in 2 rounds, unbelievable.
Yeah. And he was
and
still standing up.
Those
Yeah, he
shots
actually
were hurting.
came back and won the 3rd round, Nate.
Yep.
And then Conor came back, won the 4th round, and then there's an argument about the 5th, which if you want, give it to Nate. But Conor had 2 10-8 rounds, round 1 and 2. When you knock down, if it had been a boxing match, it would have been considered a technical knockout from a 3 knockdown rule.
Yeah.
But Nate's fucking Nate, so he'll just stand up again and be like,
he's just a zombie.
Stockton Wood. Yeah. But Conor called him Homer Simpson because he was like, remember when Homer was a boxer, he would just stand there and get punched in the face. The guy was
nothing had
tired and
happened.
he'd just push him over.
I think Conor's
he
biggest
took
thing
it
too
on
with the
point.
second fight was the leg kicks he used in the first and second.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
That was the big. He actually. Nate Diaz has always had a problem with leg kicks. So RDA would take him out with leg kicks. Roddy McDonald, everyone who fought him, Josh Thompson would eliminate because the Diaz brothers don't check kicks. They just don't. It's a gap in their game, and that
They check it with they check it with their face.
Yeah, face. Anything they can, they'll throw in front of it, and it's usually all they have in an MMA fight is your body. So, it was a great fight. One of the best fights ever, I reckon.
It's definitely up in. It's up there in my top 3
fights. Yeah,
top 3 greatest fights in UFC history.
Definitely.
So we might take a quick break, refill some drinks, and when we come back, we're going to start talking about let's say the downward spiral of Conor McGregor.
Oh, we haven't hit 155.
Well,
we haven't got champ yet.
When we come back, we'll talk straight into
we've got to hit the peak.
Say about the titles, and then we'll start getting into the other side of his UFC career. So stay with us. We'll be back very shortly.
Guys, thanks for tuning in to Fireside Yarns. Hope you had a good night. And just remember, for a proper night in with the boys during lockdown, you want proper 12 whiskey. Stay classy.
Welcome back from the short break. Before we took a drinks break, we were talking about Conor's rise to fame and the Diaz fight is what we ended it on. But just before we get into into the other part of his career. Smoke, being the first guest on, how you find it so far, man?
No, it's great, boys. Enjoying it, loving what you're doing, and yeah, it's great to be the first guest on.
No, very.
You're doing great, mate. Yeah,
Thanks, brother.
you're doing
Does
great.
keep
But if you ever need any
too much.
tips or anything like that, just let me know. I'm the expert here.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I did live with Vinno, so I know what he's like.
No,
Yeah, we don't know what the. This
no,
is
you
definitely
talk, man.
the
I'll
most
see you
fun
clean
one.
drains.
Yeah.
We'll leave that one there. But so, Conor McGregor, 155 belt.
Well, yeah,
The drone, the legacy.
He just won the rematch, so it was like, okay, Dane, okay, so now he can go straight back to what he was supposed to do, the original plan, which was because remember now, he's just fought twice at 165 and 170 or whatever it was, and he's still the fucking 145-pound champion. So a lot of people are mad that he's keeping the featherweight division on hold. So he says, look, I want to do my main plan, my main goal was to be the dual champion. So give me the 155-pound belt. And in that time, RDA had actually lost it to Eddie Alvarez. Eddie Alvarez had come up the ranks. He'd wrestle-fucked Pettis. He was just, I think, Gilbert Melendez as well. And he was fixing to do the same thing to RDA. And he ended up fucking knocking RDA out. So Alvarez had been he might even be the most decorated 155-pound champion ever if he were to class I think he was the one champion, the Bellator champion. I think he might have had Strikeforce as well.
Yeah,
he had like all the
Strikeforce.
belts, and then came into the UFC and kind of was about unifying them. And he did. He knocked out RDA to become the belt owner. And a lot of people said, well, there goes Conor's chance. Because RDA, although a great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, really known for the striking, his heavy, his heavy standing grappling and clinch, but mainly his fucking Muay Thai is beautiful. But he got knocked out by Alvarez. So now if Conor has to fight Eddie Alvarez, UFC 205 for the 155-pound belt, and Alvarez is a wrestler with hands. That's that narrative at the time, that Conor's going to get fucked. This is kryptonite. He's too big. Yeah.
You got to set the stage for it too, Dave. At the end of the day, exactly like you're saying, Alvarez was a beast. He was on a roll, wrestling, good stand-up, decorated champion from other organisations. Same time, Conor's coming up. He wants to unify, be the first double champ at the same time. 205, first ever fight, Madison Square Garden.
That's right. New York, it had been illegal because of the New York Culinary Union. Politicians and John McCain as well, they had kept MMA, not just the UFC, all of MMA illegal in New York. So it had always been a big ambition of the company to, one, politically get it changed, and two, hold a fight at Madison Square Garden. And this was it. This was the opener. Conor McGregor came out in the fucking mink jacket, the same one that Joe Frazier wore when he beat Ali at Madison Square Garden. He dressed up. It was like a little nod to him. There was so many. Again, the promotion behind this thing was fantastic. And yeah, he went out there, and within 2 rounds, in my opinion, there's been bigger blowouts and all, but I think as far as a performance, as far as a coming up and taking on the lineal champion, I think it was one of the best performances he'd ever done. Surely he beat Aldo in 13 seconds, who was a lineal champion too. But Aldo was it was a 13 second, it was a good shot. But it was well planned, but he dismantled Eddie Alvarez. He defended the takedowns. He again, like Josh was saying, he had that fucking, in a championship fight, 3 knockdowns in 1 round, and he knocked him down another two times after that. Fantastic performance.
Absolutely agree, Dave.
The GOAT. We always call him the GOAT. Yeah.
It'll go down as probably the greatest. I'd have to say it'll be definitely the greatest title fight ever, like performance-wise, because Alvarez, as we've said, decorated champion. He was on a roll. He was an animal. He was keen. He wanted to dismantle McGregor's hype, and McGregor made him look like an amateur.
Would you?
He couldn't do a single thing.
Would you say, you two being McGregor fans, do you think that the way that he performed in that fight was confirmation that he definitely was a champion? I mean, as you mentioned before, Aldo was 13 seconds. Not exactly a competitive fight, even though it was a precise punch and all that. But for you two as fans, do you think that was confirmation that yes, that he definitely is the person that you thought he was?
Well, there was no question. With Aldo, there would always been questions left. It was like, Aldo didn't have enough time to. A lot of people, didn't have enough time to
yourself. So there's no questions in the result, obviously. But you yourself, did you think, okay, he might have been a bit lucky in that fight, this is going to determine it, and at the end of that one, you sort of went, no, he's definitely the fighter that I thought he was and that I want him to be?
I thought he could do it. I thought he could do it. I didn't think it would be that flawless, to be honest with you, and I thought it would be like the Mendes fight. I was expecting a Mendes style fight where he'd have to get up, he'd have to avoid submissions. He'd have to stay back and avoid that takedown. I think he landed a couple of shots, and I was thinking round 3 or 4 or something that he'd get the knockout if he got it. But I was not expecting that type of a flawless performance, I'll be honest. Yeah.
Mate, what did you think?
Yeah, look, I agree with Dave completely, mate. Like, the Aldo fight, it was a bit. How do I say it? Like, it was a bit of a
anticlimax, do you think?
Yeah, definitely, because Aldo was Aldo. He was an animal, and I was expecting it to go at least a couple of rounds and see how he responded to Aldo's leg kicks. But the big thing, like, not trying to go backwards in our conversation, but he got in Aldo's head, and that Aldo had lost the fight before he even showed up. That punch, it wasn't lucky. He'd been training for it. He landed it perfectly. But in the Alvarez fight, like, it went to 2 rounds, but Alvarez didn't stand a chance. And just seeing the performance that he put on, especially after losing one fight to Diaz and then going 5 rounds to a decision, to come into the lightweight champion and just making him look like an absolute fool was definitely, at that point I was like, yeah, he's legit. Like, this bloke is going to be trouble for anyone that comes near him.
Do you think maybe that preparation for those Diaz fights and that experience there really went a long way as far as that fight with Alvarez?
Not really.
Oh, see, come on.
Personally, I think the main driving force behind his performance with Alvarez was his ambition and goal to be same time double champ.
So even with his ambition there, do you think though, like the preparation and that experience, as I said, with Diaz, do you think that if those 2 fights hadn't happened, do you think that he would have either be a different result, or do you think he would have still beat Alvarez in the way that he did?
It's hard to say, mate. Like, I still think he would have got the same result. He still would have been same time double champ, whether it would have been RDA or Alvarez, because of his mental warfare. But at the same time, like, at a point, I do agree with you. Fighting Diaz, and especially losing the first one, because you watched him in the Alvarez fight, he was very calm. He wasn't going in there and rushing his shots. He was countering every shot perfectly, and he knew exactly what he had to do to become that champion, and he'd done it.
Mm-hmm. Well, with the Alvarez fight, because he was doing a lot of 1-2s, like his combinations, were to set up that left cross, as or the Celtic cross, as some people call it.
It's just perfect, that shot.
Yeah, but what the Diaz, what he had to do with the Diaz fight was he had to follow up with more combinations, and that's what was getting him the knockdowns, the 3-4s, those larger combinations, and that was for the preparations for the Diaz fight. Now, I think he would have beat RDA. I think he would have beat Alvarez, but I think the Diaz fight definitely sharpened him up. And ultimately, it happened the way it happened at New York and all because of the way it did. Otherwise, it would have been a Vegas. He would have got the 155-pound belt off RDA, maybe. But however, the way he went into that first Diaz fight, he was so confident after Aldo. It was kind of like if he'd have went in that cocky and wailing that way against RDA, would he? Now, I don't think RDA could have took those shots still, but it wasn't the same fighter as when he came out and fought Alvarez. So Who'd have known if you can never know if he would have beat RDA for the 155-pound belt because he pulled out. But the fella who knocked out RDA, he knocked him out and made him look like, as Smoke was saying, a fucking complete novice. No one had made Eddie Alvarez look like that. Even that other fight where what was it? Who was it? Who was he fighting? Who was that? Eddie? Was it Chandler? Had beaten him before, I think, in Strikeforce or Bellator or whatever. And they had a good fucking couple of fights together.
Yeah, it was a war.
No one had made him look like that. Eddie Alvarez was tough. He was the dog. People were like, he was called the Underground King, and the fucking and violence, something. Yeah, the King of Violence or whatever his fucking name was. He was known as a fucking tough motherfucker to put out, and Conor McGregor was just knocking him down at will. And after that fight, because his hands were so good, I believe that's what started the can he beat Floyd, and that's what took him away from MMA. That fight is the reason why he was taken out away from MMA for years after that fight. Now,
and I think that's
he had already completed his mission as well.
Yeah.
So all that put together does not add up for a great return. If you've met all your goals and exceeded them, because I'm sure he wanted those 2 belts, but he probably didn't think he was going to get them in devastating fashion, and he thought he'd get 30 mil in the bank, and here he is, offered a fight Floyd, and he's got hundreds of millions now. Years off away from the sport. I suppose we can get into the Floyd build-up as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely get in. Smoke, what were you going to say there in regards to his...
Look, mate, as soon as he signed on with Mayweather, as soon as there was talks about it, I was excited, I was curious, but Mayweather's a different beast. Like, that's his life. He was 49-0 going into the McGregor fight. I just seen it as a bit of a downfall, like Dave said. That took him away from MMA for years.
Do you think his mindset at the time was, as Dave touched on, he'd achieved everything that he'd set out to achieve? Obviously, the dollar signs were in his eyes as well. But do you think that he's at his peak? He's achieved his goals. Right? It's let's have some fun with it. And in essence, that was where he started to drop off. The care factor so much wasn't there. Do you think that's the case, or?
I do, in a way. Like, it's hard. There's not many champions. I think probably the only champion you can say that's done it and still doing it is John Jones. Has fought everyone, beat everyone, and he's still happy to keep going. Where McGregor...
There's some asterisks there, but I think John Jones is the best ever. Full disclosure, I think he's the best ever athlete ever. Not the best prize fighter ever. Conor McGregor is the best prize fighter in mixed martial arts ever. But
Absolutely.
the best fighter, Jones, GSP, Henry Cejudo, Anderson Silva, Khabib Nurmagomedov. They're all there.
You can take Cejudo out of that.
Cejudo. He's a double weight champion. Got an Olympic medal and all.
The cringiest person known to me.
No, he is. He's total cringe. He's complete. He's Mr. Cringe. He calls himself the triple champion because he was the intergender champion because the Amanda Nunes or whoever it was refused to fight him.
Because she'd kill him. She'd kill him.
And he has an Olympic medal. So all that goes together for me, and he did well. But again, all these guys are just quitting after they you know what I mean? But that's why I put the likes of John Jones has 15 title fights won, whereas Khabib only has 13 UFC fights altogether. Exactly. Like, he's fucking John Jones, and the way he and the people he fights, and the way and not the way he's able to defeat people. Not just one way with a left hand, not just one way with wrestling like other champions. He is a beautiful. We should have a John Jones episode. He's probably got just as much crazy shit as Conor, if not more. For sure, we'll get that onto that. But we'll get back to Conor.
Dave, the Floyd fight. When he signed that, or when he decided to move in that direction, Smoke, you've already indicated that you were angry, but you were excited at the same time. Dave, what were your thoughts on his?
I loved it for reasons, because one, it was like, okay, he did what he's going to do in MMA. I'd be happy if he retired, because his whole mantra was get in, get rich, get the fuck out. These guys, in our jobs, we don't take head trauma. If in our job, how much would you want a year to take home if you're going to take life-changing head trauma? The unions, our health and safety, it'd be crazy. You'd want millions. But UFC fighters don't. They have a small career, small window to make bank. And they can possibly have injuries that they might forget their kids growing up. They might not be able to lift them up past a certain thing because of back injuries. It's not a great career to have. And he fucked the mold and went out there and become the highest paid ever to do it. And I think it would be irresponsible for him as a human to turn down a Floyd fight, take hundreds of millions of dollars. Who's going to do that? Imagine saying no thanks. I think that's disrespectful. It's like, imagine turning down for your family hundreds of thousands of dollars.
I think that
you know what I mean?
thing that people forget is, there was a lot of criticism around that from both communities, from the boxing community and the UFC community, like the MMA community, and people lose the human side of it. I think they don't put themselves in his position. As you said, if you've been offered that much money, you're going to look to your future, aren't you? Yeah, I mean, he's got a young family at the time. He's achieved his goals. So I think you'd be very hypocritical to condemn him for wanting to make some money.
But I don't even think it was fully about the money, Vinno. The way
it's a childhood dream of his.
But the way some of these like combat sport athletes is they love to challenge themselves.
Yeah.
And he, like David said,
I don't deny
he'd done everything in MMA, and now it was a new challenge in front of him against arguably the greatest boxer to ever do it.
Well, can you
definitely in his generation?
Can you imagine his legacy if he had to beat Floyd Mayweather as well?
Oh, mate, it would have been unbelievable.
Yeah. So I can understand that completely, the competitive nature of
it. Yeah.
And
like, it goes back to what Dave was saying too. Like, his main goal to start with was he wanted both belts, and he wanted to create multi-generational wealth. And seeing what he was going to get out of Mayweather, that was just icing on the cake for him.
10 UFC fights would have taken 5 to 10 UFC fights for one boxing match.
And he didn't have to worry about being taken down. He didn't have to worry about being
kicked in the face, choked out in front of everybody. And it's no easy feat either. Here's what he did do. He went 10 rounds, whatever. You can talk about carry and all that. He landed a couple of good shots. He wasn't supposed to win. And if he had a win, it would have been a travesty. And everyone knows if it was a street fight, Conor would douse him. If it was an MMA fight, it would be like funny. It would be like a cat being thrown into a supernova. You know what I mean? It would be like throwing a gerbil into a hurricane. It would just, you know what I mean? That's what it would have been like.
I'd pay to see that.
Richard Gere for making fun of your gerbil friends. But that's what it is, okay? And not only that fight, okay, was the second highest pay-per-view ever. So we're talking boxing, wrestling, MMA, anything. The only one fight that was more than him was Manny Pacquiao with 4.6 million pay-per-view, boys. That was 4.3. The closest one behind that is 2.2 with Canelo Alvarez. He had taken part and joined forces with Floyd to create that multi-generational wealth. He's in the history books. This MMA fighter in his first fight ever is the top pay-per-view boy ever. Prize fighting, why everyone does this stuff, because you can go out there and you can have a million fights and no one will give a fuck about you. Vinno, who is the fucking flyweight champion of the UFC right now?
Man, I could not tell you.
Who is the middleweight champion? Who's the 155-pound champion?
Man, I don't.
That's what I mean. So he's out there. He's a prize fighter. Now, he could shut his mouth and go, you know what, I hope everyone has a great fight out there, you know, and I love my opponent and all, and let's have a good one. No one buys the fight, and he keeps his honour. And it takes him about 20 fights to get to Aldo. He played everyone correctly. And I just can't say enough about how he got to that stage for the Floyd fight and what he did to get there and what it means to be a prize fighter. You can go for the accolades. You're not getting paid by the hour. And at the end of the day, have you ever seen Joe Frazier speak? You look at fighters when they're stuttering. It's sad to watch what CTE does to people. And that's what you're doing in there. When you're taking them hits and those fights accumulate, you're risking your whole life. And he's getting in there in the smallest amount of time possible to make that money.
And I suppose it goes to show his cheeky nature, and he is a showman. And whether you love him or hate him, you've heard of Conor McGregor, haven't you? And
What it's about.
And that's it. Yeah, I mean, we're not watching. You're watching those sorts of fights for entertainment, and having that showmanship in there is part and parcel of the, of the package.
Now, how long can you do that type of thing, and how long can any athlete stay out of a professional sport and expect to come in and be at the top? You can't leave 2-3 years and expect to waltz in and fight Habib and fucking Nurmagomedov for the belt. You just can't. Who, by the way, was not the lineal champion. Habib had beaten raging Aloy Aquinta to become the 155-pound champion, which is not the greatest accolade. But Habib is the best lightweight of all time. But Conor should have had, if he was serious about it, he should have came in and fought a couple of top teners, a couple of top fivers, and then went for the belt, like they do in boxing. Like when Tyson Fury came back after Klitschko, he fought a couple of tomato cans before he fought Wilder. Like they all do. Like Ali, when he came back, fought nobodies. After Joe Frazier and after his 2-year, 3-year stint from getting imprisoned and banned from the sport from Vietnam. You have to come in and you have to dust it off. And he didn't fucking do that. He didn't put the effort needed to be that number one. He's still the pay-per-view draw. He's still number one. I think he's tops out of the top 10 pay-per-views. He has 7 of them, and all of the top 5 in the UFC history and MMA history. So he's still, no matter if he's losing or winning, and that's part of the marketing, which I hope we'll get into later about the true genius of Conor. Whether he wins or loses, he's making mega bank. And imagine that going into work. Whether you do a good job or bad job, you're the highest paid motherfucker there no matter what. Because the true draw is the draw. There's many. Demetrius Johnson was was a fucking winningest motherfucker. But no one wanted to pay $1 to see him. I did. And hardcore.
I agree. I love
no one gave a fuck. He's tremendous athlete. Mighty Mouse. We've missed it. The
He's one
world
of the goats.
MMA. Yeah, he's definitely, and I forgot to even mention him back there, but he's easily one of the GOATs. And he fought all comers. But no one gave a fuck. Now he's doing Twitch and cameos to try and get money. He got fucking traded from the UFC as one of their best champions ever. It's a travesty, because that's not what prize fighting is about. And in MMA, there's no Muhammad Ali Act. So promoters own you. And he was able to own the biggest part of his contract, the most money out of any fighter. The strides he had done in and outside of the sport is unbelievable. But where are we now? The loss to Mayweather. He lost. I don't think his Q rating went down too bad there. I think ultimately, like, you have some people like Tyson saying that it was an embarrassment to boxing because Conor went 10 rounds and was able to land the uppercut. You've Chael Sonnen, who I don't know how much credence you want to give anything he's saying that Conor did great. Like, lots of people think he did well, but he did what happened and would have happened if not sooner.
I think he did do well, mate. Like,
he did. I'm appreciative of it.
First professional boxing match, and he went 10 rounds with one of the greatest of our generation, at least.
And landed that beautiful uppercut.
Oh, he landed some good shots. Well, everyone knew the outcome.
Yeah.
You can't go in there for your first boxing match and win against Mayweather.
They didn't give him a round. Those scorecards, boxing.
I think Dave
worse than fucking MMA. Yeah. But Floyd, all power to Floyd. What? What the hell did you just say, motherfucker?
We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about where Conor is now and what the future might hold for him. So stay with us. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this week's episode. If you are, jump on our channel and check out our previous episodes.
And please leave a comment. And remember to like and subscribe below.
Don't forget, new episodes are dropping every Friday night. So please come and join us on Fireside Yarns. Cheers. Welcome back to our discussion about Conor McGregor. Before the break, we were finished off on his Mayweather fight. I suppose, boys, you want to take us into his fight with Khabib? And
Where do you start?
where do you start? Let's start somewhere.
Adam Lobov,
what were your expectations?
Conor's teammate.
Well,
That's where it all started from. The backstage scuffle between Khabib and Adam Lobov.
now there was Conor vacated the 155-pound belt. Conor's missing for 2 years now, from 2016 to 2018. He's missing. So the tournament had happened for someone to become the 155-pound champion. So it was supposed to be between Khabib and Tony Ferguson, a highly anticipated match that MMA fans have wanted for years and years and years, but has just for some reason never happened, whether it's through injury, people missing weight, you name it, never happened. So Khabib then was lined up with Max Holloway. Another injury happened and it couldn't be him. So ultimately, a fight was happened to crown a new champion between Khabib and Aloy Aquinta. And Khabib became the new champion. Now, I think on that same card, or was it? Yeah, it was that card.
Yep. That's
the card. Artem Lobov was also fighting. And Khabib and his whole crew rocked up because on Artem Lobov in a hotel room, crowded around him. This is Conor's fucking best buddy, his sparring partner, his everything, like his main dude.
Artem is the GOAT for MMA fans.
Yeah, that's we could do a whole one on Artem. We didn't mention him in the GOATs, but he's up there.
He's number one. He's
the
Bob
arms
Jones.
of a T-Rex. Yeah. But he used to have Artem's a goer. Artem's beaten bare knuckle boxing world champions. Paulie Malignaggi. But anyway, we didn't mention him in the Floyd building. But anyway,
that's because he's not worth mentioning.
So when that happened, Conor and all of his friends, no doubt, and quite a bit of cocaine, got on a private jet and flew into the fight week, and accosted Khabib Nurmagomedov and several UFC fighters on a bus, and threw dollies at it, trashed the place, and it was an attack on Khabib, and Khabib would not get on the bus. Some reports say that he actually defecated on the bus. Now they are from just Conor. And look, Khabib, but he's cutting weight, motherfuckers on a bus. Okay. Now there is something to be said about being all tough with all your friends and Artem Lobov and slapping him in the face, and then when the tables have turned a bit, sticking on your bus. Well, he wasn't allowed off. That's when the rivalry starts. Khabib becomes champion. Says, "Bring on Conor." Conor hadn't fought in 2 years. The build-up was, you could visibly see Conor is erratic and quite drunk a lot. Like the way he was carrying on, was a little bit outside of the norm. And on that fight night, I believe we seen the first glimpse of, Conor's not the same fighter he was 2 years ago.
Well,
and why could he be?
That was, as you mentioned, he had a couple of years off.
And fighting the best ever, arguably the best ever
as well. Do you think, he's obviously enjoying it. He's got himself set up. Do you think he was comfortable and not expecting those events to unfold? We can sit here and speculate all we like.
His foot was a balloon. There's lots of excuses you can give him. He wasn't ready to fight the world champion. He did all right. It's like he went 4 rounds with Khabib. Other fighters don't do that, and he won a round arguably. Some people reckon he won that round 3. But he lost to Khabib. You can't expect to come in and do that type of shit. And he was actually attacked by, then, as we all know, the infamous Khabib's team swarms the ring, and he's getting hit in all directions. We actually look back on that. He actually done quite well.
He did really well.
He did actually. He's getting hit mine. He's pull counter and Dagestani left, right, and center. He's doing all right. And then you get Khabib being the eagle off the cage, and then the split second after running away from Dylan Dennis. But look, we're getting into petty territory. Khabib now, in my opinion, has become the lineal champion. He has defeated Conor McGregor, who was the last lineal champion who defeated Eddie Alvarez. He was disputed because he'd beaten Al. But everyone knew a couple of years before that, Habib was the guy. So Habib's champion now.
Smoke, what was
and Conor won't fight for another 2 years.
Smoke, what was your thoughts at the end of that fight? Did you think, all right, that's it, Conor's get done? Did you think that he was going to come back?
I always knew he'd come back. I just wasn't 100% sure on what Conor had come back. And I've said it from like the Mayweather, from that fight, where he lost to Khabib. I've said it from then, I'll say it to now. I put it down to the Mike Tyson syndrome. He was a young guy that come from absolutely nothing. He made hundreds of millions of dollars in doing what he loved and what he was good at. The fame got to him, and then you watched the downfall of Conor McGregor.
Mm-hmm.
All the trouble started happening outside of the organisation and the sport. He was, like Dave said, he was...
Notable incident was that the fight in the pub.
Yeah, well, that's another one. The most notable one is the bus attack.
Oh, well,
And-
yes, yeah, but that's, to me, that, when someone mentions a bus attack, I think that's internal.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
a revenge. It was revenge for his mate. Let's talk about this old man. Let's talk about this old motherfucker. This man was not an old man. He was 50. So he's like nearly a decade younger than Tom Cruise, 6 years younger than Danny Reeves. So do you think Tom Cruise 10 years ago could have walked up to a professional fighter, or could talk shit to a professional fighter, or get lippy with a professional fighter who's drunk at a bar? No. When I'm 50, I'm not going to walk up to the champion of the world or to a fella who's known for it. I'm not going to be like, go fuck yourself, your whiskey's shit. I'm going to get a slap in the head. And that's all the fella got. He got a slap in the head for being a mouthy fuck.
And
now
The
he's
problem
back.
was, because of McGregor's position in the spotlight, and because of what he'd done, because it was an old man, it just got blown out of water.
He wasn't an old man, but go on.
Yeah, but still, like, compared to Conor, he's an old
He's
bloke.
not
like-
elderly. Everyone's like, he's beating elderly people and pensioners. No, he didn't. Fella was fucking 10 years younger than fucking Tom Cruise. Come on, guys. We wouldn't take it if Tom Cruise got lippy with a fighter. We'd be like, well, he should have shut his mouth, wouldn't we? And Tom Cruise is a fucking decade older than that motherfucker.
But yeah, it was just...
anyway, the
But
scale.
it was 100%.
But here's, if the fella was 25, a professional fighter shouldn't be hitting him anyway. Yeah?
He done the wrong thing. Like, it's
Yeah.
just...
But the age doesn't matter.
No.
But
like,
as we were saying, Smoke, the crack started to show, and it was around that time that those scandals started to happen.
yeah, they all started to slowly come out. Like, you had, just to rattle off a few, so the bus incident was the first one. The bloke in the bar. Then you had multiple scandals coming out that Conor McGregor was cheating on his wife. It was ridiculous. It was just getting beyond the joke. And I just put it down to these icons in the public eye. You see it in actors, musicians, sports, all of that. They get fame to them, and then all of a sudden, all these rumors start coming out of the rumor mill. Oh, they've done this, or they've done that. I just see it as people wanting to grab money. That's all
Journalists
it
have got to
is.
make money somehow, man. And that's, drama makes money, doesn't it? Like,
Exactly what it is. And the tabloids and the paparazzi, they just thrive on it. So I don't take a single thing that's said in the media to heart. Like, no one knows what happened in all those scandals. The only thing everyone knows is Conor McGregor was under the influence and went nuts with a dolly on a bus. Because there is proof in the pudding in absolutely every second of that video. He was crazy. But
Well,
the
you
rest of
think
it, it's all
about it.
speculation.
Come on, lads. If you had the means to do that, and if we were all together and we seen our buddy getting fucking punked in the hallway, so that's it, lads, get on me plane. You know
absolutely.
what that fucking 6 hours to fucking Vegas would have been like in that plane. They would have been drinking and snoring. And, come on, lads, we're gonna get it. And they did it, and it was kind of funny that it happened. But in the end, look, this type of thing is what Conor also uses it to his advantage. Being the heel, since the start of his whole career, it has always been this way. Ariel Helwani said something very. So Conor plays it up a lot as well, and he takes advantage of these situations and says, "All right, let's fucking do it." So after the crazy Diaz 2 press conference, when everyone was hyped, there was getting cans thrown, it was mental. Okay, there's so many actual when you going back, there's so many crazy things with Conor that happened. Aldo and the belt, and so many things that people said Conor had fucking crossed the line. He'd always been rewarded for it, and he said it was mayhem. And he walked off the stage and walked up to Ariel Helwani and said, "The illusion of insanity is over now." So it's always that wrestling heel marketing persona. But it was starting to become, I think he was starting to live that a bit. And like I said, he'd already accomplished his stuff. So everything now is garnish on his career. He's still win or loss to that Habib fight. He's still fucking, he's still breaking pay-per-view records in his losses. But what happened then? 2 years goes by and he fights no one. Comes back in 2000, what was it, 18? Or was that the Habib fight? Yeah.
Habib was 18.
And now 2020, he comes back to fight Donald Cerrone. Sparks him in 40 seconds. And a PR change. He comes back, "Hey, how are you, Donald? Let's be best friends. Oh, we love Donald. Donald's a legend. Is that Donald's grandmother? Come here." You know what I mean? Like, he is on his best.
Could you be any other way with Donald Cerrone, though? He's got to be.
Well, yeah, Nate Diaz was knocking his hat off. The idea with Donald Cerrone is to get in his head.
Yeah, but
that's what a lot of people say.
When you look at Cerrone, he's one of the favourites because he'll,
for all the
reasons.
He's an all-time favourite.
Yeah, he's one of them. He's got the most wins ever, I think, in the UFC.
Like, but it's almost like
a lot of losses too. But he's been around. He takes those fights that no one else.
But he's a fighter. He's a fighter's fighter.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So he's got that respect there. Do you think, even with Conor, the way that he is, I don't think that he'd have that much disrespect, or he'd have the respect for him to not go down that path of.
I don't know, because he did it to Aldo, and Aldo was like, no one talked shit with Aldo. Aldo was so fucking respected. That's what blew up. People hated Conor for how he treated Aldo. And he was saying crazy shit back then. People talk about, oh, Conor's saying bad stuff now. Conor said that he would go he said, if this was another time, I would march to the Brazilian favelas on horseback and kill every man who was not fit to work. Like, that's some crazy genocide he's talking about. And it's, you know what I mean? Like, he's saying crazy stuff to Aldo and stealing his belt and going to Rio and saying all that shit. And they had a history. As Cerrone and McGregor had a history. When he was coming up, Cerrone was saying that he was shit. He'd never get to 155. Conor was going, yeehaw. They were doing all this. You know what I mean? Like, they had a little history. But Conor knew, okay, of fucking the Habib shit. I was getting called a racist. I was getting called Islamophobic. I was getting, you name it. He was in the bus shit had happened. The sexual harassment allegations, which he's all been proven innocent for as well. I know people are trying to dance around it a bit, but he's innocent, and it is hearsay and it's tabloid bollocks as far as we can see. And I'll reserve judgment on that if any actual proof comes of it. But he had a big PR move to make, and I think he did that with Cerrone. But 2 years out against an agent, Cerrone, who had not been himself the last couple of years, that gave him some false hope for the first Dustin rematch. What do we reckon?
Yeah, I was very interested coming into the Dustin rematch, mainly because Dustin's been on a roll ever since that McGregor loss. He's had some unbelievable fights and good performances. First man to finish Gagey. Who else we got? He didn't finish Holloway, sorry, but he went 5 rounds with Holloway for the lightweight division.
He had a 2 fights with Alvarez. One that was like a no contest. I think it was like a knee or a headbutt or something like that. Then he came back. I think he beat him on points.
Yep.
So he
Yeah,
beat
he had a
former
good-
champion in Alvarez.
He had a really good run, and he was a completely different fighter from the very first McGregor Poirier
Active.
fight. Yep. And I was very hesitant watching that. I didn't know what was going to happen because, as Dave said, McGregor had been inactive for the last, you could probably near say 4 years. He'd had 2 fights. 2 fights in 4 years, and that's not good when you're coming up against blokes that fight 2 to 3 times a year. And yeah, but very, very surprised with the game plan and the tactic Poirier put out. You're right, Dave.
But again, look, Conor's only lost to 2 people since the in MMA since the Alvarez fight. Since he became champ, he lost to Dustin Poirier, who people are saying now is the best 155er on the planet, regardless of Oliveira. People are saying it's Dustin. And he lost to Habib. And that's in 5 years. He's only, you know what I mean? You can't, there's no sport you can rock up after years out and get those type of wins. Even GSP, who was arguably, he had to leave because he was like, I can't keep this up. He had just scraped by in the Hendricks win. He probably should have lost that Hendricks fight, in my opinion, if you looked at their heads. No, Hendricks fucked up GSP's head, man.
Yeah,
GSP's head was fucked. But he was the champion, so you get that leeway. But it's hard to keep. And again, Conor McGregor, here, I've got this down. The average MMA fighter career, how long do you think it is?
5 years.
12.5 years. 12.5 for the average MMA. UFC, it's 9 to 10 years. He's been an active professional fighter for 14 years, Conor. So not only is he at the end of what is a professional career generally in the sport, he's trying to fight them tippy-top motherfuckers. You know what I mean? All those guys like BJ Penn and Dan Henderson and all, Granny Couture, you name the legends that have had those runs. They fight, the last 5-10 fights are always garnish on top of a stellar career. And Conor's near the end of that. You know what I mean? He's 22 wins, 19 KOs. Like,
I suppose
he's had his career.
Begs the question, especially with the ankle injury. And even though there was footage of him
not an ankle injury
the other day, where do you see him? Do you see him finishing up? Or there has been the discussion around McGregor and the Paul fight. Do you see?
Well, he broke his. All right, so second Dustin fight really quickly came in.
Sorry, yep.
Yeah, freak, not an ankle. He actually fucking snapped his tibia and fibula or whatever the fuck it is. Like it is the same. He just lower down as the Weidman and Silva fight. So complete fucking freak, horrible accident. We've only seen it not that many times, so we don't really know what the blueprint is from coming back like that, from something like that. We have Silva is probably the only thing.
Saw footage. He was
he's walking on
machine with
50% of his weight.
50% of his body weight on it, and he seems pretty comfortable.
We'll see how he goes.
Yeah, I mean, he's not.
Who is he going to fight when he comes out? Is he going to go back and fight Poirier and Habib again? Like, to me, it's like I think he's got like the Diaz trilogy. He's got some money fights out there left in his career, but I think like the likes of the champions. I think Conor McGregor's story is after MMA will be halfway done. If you look at the likes of Tyson, who was well worse than McGregor, said well worse stuff to his opponents, literally bit his opponent's bodies off, actually went to jail for convicted rapist, like had the communist leaders tattooed all over his body. Like, and now look at Tyson. He is the adult Justin Bieber. If Mike Tyson walked in a room and if Mike Tyson walks into a room, every man's like, oh my God, fucking Mike Tyson, how are you? We love him. We love Mike. And I think Conor has twice as much of the charismatic nature as Mike Tyson. And I think whether it's through business or his commentary or whatever he decides to do, I think that's how he's going to win back everyone. I think athletically, He's 14 years pro. What more could you want from him? He's hit his marks. There's probably a couple of money fights left there, a couple of Jake Paul celebrity boxing things left, probably. But I think I can't see him getting the second win at UFC gold like the likes of like a Michael Bisping. No one thought fucking Michael Bisping was going to come back and win the belt. No one thought Oliveira was going to come back and win the belt. You know what I mean? Like, it happens. Will it happen with Conor? There's so many things that if ever there was a fighter that didn't need that, it's him. He can go movies. He can fucking release a rap album. He could do a podcast. He could do a fucking TV show where he goes around the world. You know, he could do whatever he wants. He could whiskeys, whatever.
Smoke.
What I want from him, yeah.
Smoke. I've got to rein Dave in because he's going to go on for days.
I'll go on forever. Yeah.
Smoke. What do you see for Conor? What's your predictions or thoughts on where he will end up? Do you think he's got another couple of money fights left in him? Do you think after this injury it'll be maybe one fight and that's it? What are your thoughts?
It all depends on how he comes back from his injury, mate. Like, at the end of the day, the fight everyone wants to see. No one cares about another fight with Poirier. Conor might, Poirier might, but no one cares. It's the Diaz 3. Everyone wants that Diaz 3. And I reckon, my honest personal opinion, that'll be his last fight in MMA.
Yeah.
I think
that'll be great in a big
that'll
stadium.
Be his last fight. Yep. Say goodbye to McGregor as a fighter. But he's got a lot to offer the sport, whether it be commentating, whether or not it be management, whether or not it be trainer. Like, he's got a brilliant mind for the sport and a lot of experience to back it. But coming back to it, yeah, there's always going to be those money fights like Jake Paul and whatnot. And I hate to say it, but I just wish someone had knocked him out. Like, he's making the MMA community look like a joke.
He is and he isn't, because he won't come over to fight MMA. That's the thing. Like, you're fighting MMA fighters in boxing. These guys will fucking twiddle your twaddle. They will fucking rip you inside out. Floyd, none of these guys are stupid enough to try it. One fella did, and James Toney is I think he's he might be a 4-weight world champion boxer. He
fought
came
Randy
in,
Couture.
fought Randy Couture and got gorilla stomped. It's not going to happen, lads. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You're out of your depth. A street fight, MMA fighter wins. An MMA fight, an MMA fighter wins. In a boxing match, you know, MMA fighter has a chance, but it's not a fight. I'm sure who would win in a golf fucking match? Who knows? Like,
Not me. That's
I wonder
every time.
Will Conor beat fucking Tiger Woods now that Tiger Woods isn't number one anymore? Okay, like,
I'd pay to see that.
Silly. Look, ultimately, I would even watch him fight Jake Paul, but ultimately, I want to Conor, for all the haters and they're like, oh, he's fucked, he's shredded. Yeah, but so does all. They all go through that. He's done his bit. Like Tyson, he'll have his resurgence. I think it'll be bigger and better because, again, Tyson had a fucking dark decade or two in between that, and he was getting knocked out by nobodies. You know, he was biting people's fucking ears off, and we still welcome the back, and we love Mike Tyson. If you look at the fucking, I want to get this year, he's the highest paid athlete in sports. Okay, not like he's losing, and he hasn't won a proper fight since Cerrone and a proper contender since 2016, and he's still fucking making bank. He's got his purse and he's got his outside of the fight game money, and no one's hitting him. How is he doing that? He's a smart marketer, and he's still winning the prize fighting game. Now, and a proper 12. We haven't even talked about his business ventures outside his fucking charities. I mean, like, $500,000 to fucking children's charity in Louisiana, thousands of dollars to homeless charities in Dublin, PPE kits, over $1 million for COVID supplies to the Irish hospitals, 1.5 million to first responders in America, so firefighters, Saved his boyhood soccer club, full kits, sponsorship facilities for all them. He saved both of his gyms, SBG and Crumlin Boxing, wheelchair boxing coming up, multiple local charity boxing events. He does a lot of Make-A-Wish, you name it, behind the scenes. He's doing all that stuff, and he's making bank. I'm so proud of him, and I hate the hate he gets because no fighter is living up to this. No fighter is.
Do you think, like, through his career though, without that hate, he wouldn't have had the drive that he does? Like, like we touched on, his career might not be over. It might be. We don't know. But without that hate, he wouldn't have had that drive. And without the personality and the showmanship that he's got, he would never have got anywhere near where he is. And with that comes the people that just love to hate him. As I mentioned before, whether you love him or hate him, everyone knows Conor McGregor. So
at the end of the day, you're 100% right. There's not a single soul pretty much on this earth that doesn't know of Conor McGregor. And he can be hated all he wants, but what he's done for the sport of MMA is second to none. No one has even come close to it. He's got people watching pay-per-view main events with him in it that have never seen it, don't know the first thing about MMA. So
they want him dead.
His legacy is sealed as one of the greats.
Yeah. And I think that's...
If you want to knock him out, tune in and watch him. That's the thing. He creates polarization, and you become invested. Just like Jake Paul's doing now. Oh man, I want to see that fella get knocked out. So how do you see that?
Money.
There's two sides of a fight. You know what I mean? And so many fighters like GSP. Oh, I love GSP, but no one wants to see him get battered.
No.
You know what I mean? No one wants to see these whenever you tune into a Conor fight, win or loss, you're gonna get a fucking fight. Something crazy is gonna happen maybe in the build-up. He's gonna show up no matter what.
It's entertainment. No matter what's gonna happen, it's gonna be entertaining. And I suppose that's the best way to define Conor McGregor and his career, is it has been entertaining, and it still is. I mean, you only have to jump on his social media and just his charisma, the way he is. It's very hard to hate the guy because of how cheeky he is, how charismatic he is.
He's a showman.
He is. And that's...
fighter.
Yep. That's what it comes down to. He's a showman, and people love to watch that. People like drama.
Yep.
They like drama. They like entertainment.
He's not the best ever. He has notoriety. He's literally the most notorious ever. That's what it... And if you want to get paid, you need notoriety. No, who won the Olympic gold medal in fucking wrestling? Oh no, it was actually Gable something, but whatever. Like that dude.
So what if he's going to go train with John Jones?
All right. So that's
exactly
all we've got.
It's about
for this.
You're not being paid by the hour. Yeah, I'll go forever. Yeah.
We're gonna have to cut it, otherwise we're gonna have to have another break. This can't happen. So
the fire's going out, everybody.
The fire is going out. We're running out of drinks. Smoke, thanks so much, mate, for coming on and having a chat with us. We really appreciate it. And there will be heaps of opportunities where we will harass you and get you on.
My pleasure, boys. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man.
Anytime.
Oh, well, now you've said it. Next week, 6 o'clock.
Just to everybody out there, if you enjoyed watching this, like and subscribe. Get down there, leave a comment, do some shit. If you hate Conor McGregor, let us know why. I'll argue with you for days. Okay? Tune in, have a laugh. That's what it's all about.
Well, thanks again, guys, for tuning into Fireside Yarns. We'll have another episode for you next week. I've been Vinno. This is Dave. Thank you.